Good afternoon, everybody. So I hope you are all doing well, and welcome to the third of this series on code quality. So recently we talked about that you should write the code for somebody else, and today we are going to talk about another aspect through which we should look at the code to know if it is a good or not good enough quality. So this point is code must follow some standards. So we just don't sit down and write something, but we have to somehow see that it is by some standards. So if you look at it, so what could be such a standard? I'll help with dictionary again. And the word standard, one of the very good definitions, what is, I'm first time here, what is very good for our purposes is an approved model, something what serves or is worth to follow. So when talking about standard, there are actually two kinds of standards, what I can see. One of them is general JavaScript standards. Maybe Doug Crockford, who is inventor and founder of all JavaScript language, should talk best about, not me, but we can read what he written about standards about writing JavaScript programs. So you see something about files, white space, how should it be and why should it be. It is nice here that he explains everything. It is not only that, I would like to have it this way, but he explains why it is good. So and so. So what about comments, variable declarations, function declarations, and so on and so on. You can go there. It's crockford.com/code HTML, and it is really worth reading. Maybe not not once in a life of a developer, but to go back there and read it from time to time. All right, so that's about JavaScript itself. Well, we actually do not only work in JavaScript in a plain language, but we usually use some libraries, EXT.js, we use Angular, we can use React, we can use Vue, and maybe a lot of more. So are there any such style guides or something how the code should look like for these libraries? Well, that's relatively easy to find out. So what I did was I went to Google and let's say EXT.js code style guide. Oh, it's already here. So, and it reveals Sencha code guidelines. So I have opened it already. So I have it here. Oops, here. Sencha code guidelines. And I'll tell you that this is really, really good reading, and it is even interesting. It is well written, and you can really read it through the beginning to the end to find out why and how such a good Sencha code should look like. Here is, for example, aspects of readability of the code, what I have spoken about in the first video. Then is maintainability, preventing errors, performance. About some of them I will speak in the next videos, but for now you can read it in the Sencha guide. So in the readability, we can see that we have something about naming convention, about namespaces, classes, functions, local variables, and so on and so on. Alright, so the same method with Google reveals that Angular also they have their style guide. Yeah, I must admit that I haven't read this fully, but from the content it really seems interesting and worth reading if you are an Angular developer. So what is style vocabulary, what is file structure conventions, single responsibility is how to write individual files, and so on and so on. So that's for Angular. For React, the situation is a little bit different because React itself doesn't have, at least I haven't found, a written style guide for React as it is, but Airbnb that was using or is still using React for their applications and are big supporters of React, they written JSX style guide. JSX is extended JavaScript that is used by React. So again, I haven't read it fully yet, but I will. From the content, we can see that it really seems to be very worth reading. So about naming, how do we name things, about declarations, alignment, and so on and so on. And Vue, that is probably youngest, but I like it quite well, quite a lot, this framework. They do have their style guide, however it is still in beta. Nevertheless, it's worth to have it and worth to read it here. So far for the information of what we can find on the internet, that's absolutely fine. However, there can be something more to it because these guys, they will tell you that, well, we are using camel case. By the way, there are several cases. Camel case, kebab case, and even snake case. So camel case looks like this. Pascal case looks like this. The first letter is capital. Snake case is with underscores. And kebab case is with dashes in between. So this is probably not suitable for use in JavaScript itself for naming variables, but it's mostly used in naming HTML custom tags like in Angular or elsewhere. Alright, so in this guide they tell you, okay, so name your variables with camel case and also functions and so on and so on. But what they most likely don't tell you is that what should be a semantic of this. How do you want these variables and functions to be named? So therefore, for a company, I would always write a guide that would be internally followed by the developers. In that guide you can name, all right, the first point of your education as a developer in our company. Well, I have forgotten to switch screens on about cases. It's here. Camel case, Pascal case, snake case, and kebab case. So if I get back to these developers, all right, in my company style guide, I would probably written, all right, so go and read about code guidelines, well, Sencha, because I'm working with a Sencha library, plus you will read our own style guide written for the company. And in such style guide, we would probably name things like, well, I need this one. I would probably put their naming conventions, but now I mean semantics. For example, I name all variables with nouns or adjectives. So let's say hidden would be adjective. Hidden true would mean yes, it is hidden, and hidden false would mean it is not hidden. Noun would be, let's say, header. So header would be a text that is displayed in the header. Functions I would always name with verbs. So set header or apply header or calculate something, and so on. Maybe some properties you could name with underscore in between, not in between, at the beginning, let's say private properties. Anyway, you can have your own company naming conventions. Put their naming conventions to your style guide. Then spaces, indenting, commas, it depends. Yeah, do you want spaces around colons or not? Do you want to align colons? How do you want indenting, with spaces or with tabs? By the way, Doug Crockford recommends indenting with spaces. Otherwise, it is very, very unpredictable if you have mix of spaces and tabs. Now, how you want commas? Sometimes I wrote some time ago, who know me, I wrote code with leading commas. It is usually not necessary anymore. So you would tell that how you would want these commas. Then you would say how to write the documentation. Yeah, so all right, I will put it in front of variables, in front of functions. By the way, about the documentation, there will be some separate video. And how do I want to write a file header and footer? Yeah, sometimes even in some really advanced developers, I do not see the necessity for them to write the header and footer. So I conversely, I would like to always see at least who wrote it, when he wrote it, if it was modified and by whom, possibly when it was modified, what the file is all about. Yeah, maybe here is some licensing, the short changelog if it is not in separate files, examples of usage. So that is sort of a header of the file. And footer is just simple. It just says EOF, end of file, and it just signals that, yeah, nothing has been left out from the file. If I copied and paste it from here to somewhere else, I copied and pasted fully, not only a part of it. So that would be the code that follows some standards. So if you look at this one, all right, here is a documentation. It is before some function declaration. Here is a verb defining what this function does, sync order, so it synchronizes some order of something. Yeah, so order of grid columns, it is here in the short comment. You can see this is with leading comma, written with leading comma. By the way, leading comma and trailing comma, I'm just quite fine about any of the styles, leading or trailing, but do not mix them in one file. Do not mix various practices or various styles in one file. Yes, and here we see some indenting. Yes, there are spaces around equal, equals are not aligned. Yeah, and so on and so on. So this is the code that is written with a style according to some style guide. Yeah, it really pays back. For example, this is my 15 years or 17 years old code, and as you can see, it is the same style, except of leading commas, what were not popular at that time. But it says what the file is about, who wrote it, when it was written, 2005, you see, this is almost 15 years. Yeah, and there are some documentation. Their function is, here is a verb, fetch, yes, and there is some indenting. Yeah, and it looks quite nice even this time. Yeah. Good. Okay, so that's about style. Of course, you can go and you can put into your style guide some and others. That means whatever you find is necessary. Yeah, for example, you want every modification, you want bug fixes references, you want whatever your company might need your developers to write in the code, so you put it there. The key is It should always be written. It should always be studied by the every and all and everybody of the developers. It should be understood and it should be followed. If you would want to take your code and have it reviewed, just feel free. For code quality review, go to learnfrosaki.com/services. You just fill in the little form and I can do this code review for you. That's most likely all for today. And if you had any questions or any comments, just feel free to write me or either on learnfrosaki.com, or you can write me on Facebook or anywhere else. So have a good day today.